I missed my introduction. More women die each year of this stuff than they do from the big ones. Cancer, heart disease, things like that. So it's a pretty pivotal condition, and it's something that really deserves a lot of focus and attention. So hence why we kind of put this talk on. The challenge, I think, is that, you know, we brush on this thinking differently in the chiropractic world. The challenge is that the current understanding of health is just based on this idea that going through life just without symptoms means that you're healthy. So that would be like asking the question, would you rather be rich or just not poor? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but that's all of the statistics and all of what's recommended out there is just enough to keep you not sick. Who wants that? Or do you want to express what your body's designed to express? So that's the difference. Traditional care or allopathic care, meaning all disease care, limits you just to having no symptoms. Now, you know, our philosophy is that it's more than that. It's a zest for life. It's full potential. It's going riding and having your body, going on a cruise and having your body, doing the things that you want to do when you want to do them, and calling upon your body and it's there. Who wants that? I want that. So here's how we have to change this. Einstein has a great quote: you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. We're thinking this way so much and thinking of how do we alter these little things instead of going, okay, well we can't, that's not working. People are dying, we're spending a lot of money, we spend more than most countries' gross national product on health, and it's not getting any better. So things need to change. We have to change our mind, change our perspective, and be taught how our body's actually working. So that's why we have to do these things. And in order to create well-being, wellness, and full potential, we have to look at the body in terms of these three things. What limits your body from expressing things is simple. It's stress. Stress is related to every degenerative disease on the planet, an abundance of it. So we have to try and find out ways to not only understand it, but also change it if necessary. Can you change your can you change your siblings? No. Can you change your parents? No. Can you change your job? That's a questionable one with most people's minds, but yeah. You have to focus on the things that we can control and change. And if we organize it into these three things, where does stress come from? Emotional, which is job-related; nutritional, what you're putting in your mouth, water that you're eating; and physical, how you're moving your body, subluxation, poor posture, lack of movement. Then it becomes easier. We can kind of bring it down to an organized format. So really that's what we're going to talk about today. So some things about osteoporosis and osteoarthritis just to clarify. Everybody know what it is, yes? Osteoporosis is a thinning or a weakening of bones, and then obviously that's related to joints. Osteoarthritis, there's a confusion out there. Osteoarthritis comes from a breaking down of a joint, okay? Arthritis in general is different. Arthritis is a global inflammatory condition of the body's joints, not just one or two, but everything. So things like rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. Everybody heard of this kind of stuff? So I want to differentiate the two because I hear a lot of patients saying, well, I have arthritis. Well, what that means is that your body is completely inflamed and your immune system is reacting, versus osteoarthritis, which is a breaking down of one joint. Does that make sense? Okay, so the technical term, if you want to describe inflammation of a joint, you should call it really arthrosis, which means a dysfunction of a joint or a breaking down of a joint. You may have a broken down joint, but it may not be inflamed. You put the itis on the end and it means inflammation. Okay, and it's really important to differentiate that. Good. That all makes sense. Here's why. Healthy bones versus weak bones. There is this massive construction down at the Hudson Yards in New York. Has anyone heard of it? $20 billion construction, the world's biggest development, land site development. And what they're doing is they're building on top of a train station, and how they're creating the platform for that. And everybody's seen it. You put rebar and then concrete around it. And that's essentially what bone matrix looks like. You have the matrix, which is the foundation, which is the rebar, and then you pack it in with all the minerals and stuff, and you pack that all in to make it strong and flexible. Bone is flexible. It has the flexibility to it. It's like if an earthquake hit Seattle, then that stuff that we're building with our buildings allows flexibility but stability at the same time. Now the other fun thing is that bones have they're more than just a foundation. I was talking about this with Marissa last night preparing this talk. It's important to know that bones host a ton of other functions. They produce white blood cells, they produce red blood cells, and one of the biggest things that they provide is they're like a storehouse for minerals and vitamins. So when the body is deficient in minerals and vitamins, it actually goes to this storehouse and extracts this stuff. And quite frankly, the skeletal structure is one of the lowest structures on the totem pole of importance. So, is the brain more important than bones? Yes. Is your heart more important than bones? Yes. Are organs more important? Digestive system? Yes. So that's why it's a storehouse. You can actually, it sounds terrible, but you can actually live without them. Right? As you've seen people with amputees, and you can live without stuff. What is necessary is what's in the core.
Yeah.
Make sense? Okay. So if we lose the bony density, then it becomes weak. These holes start to expand. It's like, the strength, Swiss cheese, you put more holes in it, or tunneling underground, you put more holes, it just becomes weaker. That's what happens to the osteoporosis. And then you see that on x-ray because it's much lighter color. Okay? Make sense? Any questions on that? Okay.
If you were diagnosed with osteoporosis and you started exercising on a regular basis, can you reverse something?
Yes, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to take you from what it is and then empower you to how to make it better. No question. Great question. So, just more things about, you feel free to read that, but it's incredibly strong. That's the other thing to know. It's incredibly strong. So when you're getting bony depletion from something that's incredibly strong and incredibly rugged, that means that this stuff has been happening for a long time. If you take a skeletal structure and it starts to warp and change shape, and it's the hardest tissue in your body, how long do you think your body's been extracting stuff? A few weeks? A few months? Literally decades. And if it shows up on x-ray, generally you have to have 50% of the problem visible in order to see it. Do you know what I mean by that? You have to have half of your bone lost in general before you see it on film.
So if you see it on film, that's
big. Literally decades. Yeah. So it puts a time perspective. And in our profession, we use x-ray as a bit of a crystal ball. We can see, okay, well, if we've got changes in shape and these little bone spurs are happening. In order to get this stuff is literally decades in the making. So it gives us an idea, okay, well, it sets, and then in anticipation of the amount of time necessary to change your body, we can set a little bit of a goal in mind. Like, if this has been happening for decades, well, let's put an expectation of a few years in order to be able to not even think about reversing, but stopping the forward progression. Pull your car out of the ditch first. Yeah? Okay. Okay, too technical? Everything okay? Questions? All right. So risk factors. I think generally people know what risk factors are. Smoking, yes. Alcohol, yes. Lack of exercise, yes. Postmenopausal women, will get into the reason why that happens. Small frame, history. We generally know this stuff. These are lifestyle. So again, a lot of these conditions are based on your choice. So that's something that we're going to get into a little bit later, is how to empower you to make good, solid choices. Now, this is a huge controversy out there.
Wow.
Who has fluoride in their toothpaste? Who uses fluoride?
I haven't even looked now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Didn't know it's harmful to the thyroid gland though.
Recent study came out of Harvard. Children were tested who used fluoride and consumed fluoride in the water. Half the intelligence and IQ of people who didn't.
Wow. So what do you do to filter it out, or do you just have to buy bottled water?
Yeah, that's the challenge. Luckily, we live in a time where everybody's coming out with these wonderful products. You can get whole house systems that basically take all of that junk out for $500. It's not only in your shower. You have to remember that chlorine becomes aromatic. I mean, it comes in the steam of your shower, so you're inhaling it through your lung tissue, as well as bathing in it through your skin, as well as ingesting it in your water. So there's 3 sources you can just remove with a $500 investment. Pretty cool. Okay, so drinking water must change and fluoride in your toothpaste must change. No dentist is going to want to hear that, so you need to present with them. Come to them with this understanding. Go and get the research and present it. I would like no fluoride in my. How do I get around fluoride? Okay. I have a dentist friend. We have interesting conversations.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah. It's the same thing of the belief systems are so strong that it becomes dogmatic. It's like believing that it's unlucky to go to a hotel that has a 13th floor. It's so out there and so entrenched that it's really hard to change. Fluoride actually came, and I'm totally digressing here, it actually came as an accident. It's a byproduct of metal smelting after the Second World War. They had piles and piles of this stuff. And they realized if you put bacteria in a bowl full of fluoride, guess what? It's going to die. But that's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, what does fluoride do to the global health and well-being of your body? Does it kill? It's like aspirin. Do you want anything else when you're having a heart attack? No. But what does aspirin do to the global health of your body? Well, it increases the chance of hemorrhagic stroke by 84%. So it's about the question you're asking. Is fluoride kill bacteria that causes, cavities in teeth? No question it does. But what is it doing to the global health of the body? Well, it punctures holes in teeth. It ruins your thyroid gland. It causes liver and kidney failure. So anyway, I digress a little bit. Ask questions. Find out before starting to believe in the norms of society. Because you have to remember that normal these days is sick. I don't want to be normal. I want to, yeah, okay. Oh, so medicines. This is important. I'm not here to tell anybody here, as my disclaimer, to take or not to take medication. My job is to educate so that you can make choices and informed decisions. You can go to your medical doctor and go, okay, well, what about this or what about that? Okay, I can't tell you to take drugs or not. It's out of my scope of practice. But what I can tell you is that calcium is absorbed in an acid environment. What do Tums do?
Take the acid
Yes.
out. And that's what they say to take, because it's iron calcium.
And then they put calcium in it and make you believe that, oh, this calcium is going to be absorbed. Yeah. Protein is broken down in your stomach. It's broken down in an acid environment. If you change the acid and the pH of your stomach, what are you doing to your ability to break down protein?
And how many millions and millions and millions of people are on it now?
Yeah.
You look at the commercials and it's...
A lot of this stuff will be frustrating, and I apologize for that. But I'm happy insofar as this might be the first time you actually hear this stuff.
And why is it that there is so much in the way of stomach too much acid, not enough acid in the population? Is it their diet? Is it...
Okay, we could spend weeks talking about that, and I'm happy to. I plan for about 3 or 4 hours tonight. But in brief, lots of things. And hopefully over the course of our health series, we're gonna be able to address some of that stuff. So in simple terms, one, I think people are subluxated. In my profession, the nervous system's not communicating well with the gut for various reasons, overstress, abundance of stress. You guys know that, you're here and you're under care. Secondly, we have 1 million times less bacteria in our stomachs than our hunter-gatherer ancestors did 10, 12,000 years ago. And our genes right now are 10 to 12,000 years old. The environment back then was different, much different than it is now. We have the same genes trying to get used to an industrialized world that's sterilized and drug and overdosed, and so we don't have this good gut bacteria. That's a really big point. We need it. It synthesizes lots of stuff. It allows for proper digestion and absorption of certain minerals, so that's happening. There are as many branches of nerve tissue in our gut than there are in our spinal cord. So the effects of stress on the human body are amplified on areas with dense nervous system tissue. Brain, heart, gut, spinal cord. Okay, so stresses are abundant and they're affecting our nervous system's ability to regulate itself. Those are a few of the biggies. Diet, definitely. You know, we're bombarding our systems with stuff that our systems don't even recognize. All man-made things, chemicals. I don't know if anyone's read the label of a box of food that you grab off the shelf.
Oh,
There's 50 ingredients you can't even
you
read.
can't even pronounce it. We don't even look
And that stuff is
recognizable as
man-made,
anything real.
petroleum-based, cancer-causing, and we're wondering why this stuff is happening. So. Okay, everyone all right with that? Sorry to digress a little bit. Now, here we go. I'm about to get some food thrown at me. The highest rates of osteoporosis are in countries that drink a ton of milk.
We've been taught to drink milk.
Yeah, from the time that we were small.
Who has taught you to drink milk?
Mama. And the commercials.
There you go. Television and marketing. It's all good marketing. Yeah. Is everyone okay with that? Sorry. I'm sorry.
I've cut my
really
milk
am.
consumption down so much
Good.
over the last few years, so it's not
Good.
surprising.
I'm going to give you a silver lining. Eat good cheese
Oh,
from organic milk. Yeah, because it's been aged, it has bacteria, enzymes, it's a live
How
market.
about cheese like from Europe, because it's non-GMO? I
Boom.
just ate some cheese from
Yes.
came from New Zealand.
Yeah, that's the other stuff is
Italy.
RBHG-free milk. And they don't, most large dairy companies in North America are actually, I'd say 20 of the top 50 is what a current stat, are removing RBHG from that stuff. Everybody know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So those are other things to look for. As soon as it says organic, it's RBHG free. Okay, and try and get it raw. People will say raw, not raw. There's an argument out there about that. But raw milk cheeses are great. Fermented,
But do you even need it? Look at an elephant. You don't drink milk, don't take milk products. You have the biggest skeleton of everybody.
And they're vegetarian.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. The vote is, as soon as you stop breastfeeding, that milk should go. There's a reason why people are lactose intolerant. That's not a problem. That's normal. Okay? Most countries in the world other than the United States, which has been trained by our healthcare system not to breastfeed beyond the age of 6 months, most countries around the world that don't have we are ranked 27th out of 39 industrialized countries for infant mortality rates. You would think that would be much lower in a country that's so industrialized and so full of technology and employed healthcare providers. But it's shocking, 27th. It's amazing. And so obviously that education system is not right, and stopping breastfeeding at 6 months is crazy because other countries are up to 3 and 4 years old. So anyway, so as soon as you reach that stage where you're weaned off, it doesn't make sense to go and consume another species milk that's designed for cows. Yeah. I get a kick, Marissa has been breastfeeding our children, obviously we think this way and whatever, and applying it to our lifestyle. Our children, Livy was breastfeeding up to the age of 2, I think. And at one point, we were flying, when were we flying? Back to Boston to visit her family, and she was breastfeeding a 2-year-old in the airport. We got looks and.
You're
uncomfortable
kidding.
things.
People still.
So I'd like to tie this into something emotional. Everybody heard of the recent hurricane that hit the East Coast? There was a woman on the news who brought her dehydrated and passed away, expired child into the hospital because the child was malnourished and dehydrated. She was lactating and was actually producing milk that was coming through her shirt.
And she didn't.
She didn't think, she thought that children were fed formula from the bottle.
Was she foreign?
No.
Was she?
From there.
Well, the same they did in Africa. Nestle had a big campaign in Africa
Yeah.
to sell their powdered milk.
Yeah.
And people, or kids were dying left and right because they had bad water. Of course, they had to mix water with the
With the
powder.
milk.
Trying to get
Just
mothers to
to-
stop. It's
the
not
big
good to
propaganda.
nurse your babies
Yeah,
in Africa, where that's really what you need to do for their survival.
yeah.
It's crazy.
So anyway, I'm sorry to tie that into something a little more depressing, but what we want to do is take that information and learn from it.
Mhm.
And the reality is, once you stop consuming milk from mom, which should be anywhere up to the age of 3, 4, you need to stop, because consuming substances from another species on massive abundance, not just, okay, occasionally in a pinch, we're over at somebody's house and we have some cheese or, you know, some milk in your tea. It's every day 3 or 4 glasses, plus cheese, plus ice cream, plus
What about yogurt?
yogurt. Yogurt is a source of dairy.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. Plus it's loaded with sugar, 40 grams-ish.
How about kefir?
There are other ways to get good bacteria. So again, that's just a dairy source.
Even if it's
Keep it
organic?
partially digested.
PCC sells it.
Yeah. Therefore, it's good. Well, you know, I like to think that things are based on a continuum. There is terrible, horrible stuff down here that gradually gets better to amazing stuff up here. Is it better than consuming RBHG milk from Tyson Farms? Yes. Are we designed to eat milk from another species in massive quantities? No. So, you know, make your choices within that range, and then continue to get better and better and better and wean off this stuff. And we're here to help, so. Okay, sorry, that slide was supposed to take about a minute, but. Calcium supplementation, okay? Increases fractures 64%. Because, tell me something, if you consume a piece of broccoli, is it pretty balanced with what nature wants you to provide? Did nature say, okay, I'm going to go to this broccoli and I'm going to extract all of the calcium, leave the broccoli behind, and all you consume is the calcium from that? No. Vegetables have this wonderful, and everything that exists in nature has this wonderful balance of things that you need in the quantities that you need them. So when we go supplementing stuff without the balance of the other things, phosphate and vitamin D, calcium's not absorbed, and it actually causes an imbalance. Once you have an imbalance in your body has to cut off its nose to spite its face, steal something else to metabolize that to get rid of it. Okay? And I like to, you know, obviously just as an aside, keep an eye on all the references. Okay, these aren't chiropractic journals, I'm not being paid to say this stuff. This is from well-researched, peer-reviewed journals from around the world. Okay? Great. So the role of calcium. Calcium's amazing. It's so important for tons of functions. Blood clotting, building bones, and one of the things I want to pause on is buffering the blood. The reality is our diets have shifted us to this. Everybody know the range of pH, right? From 1 to 14. Remember the litmus paper test that we used to do back in school? And it was 1 to 14. Alkaline or basic was 7+, and acidic was 7 below. Our bodies typically are in a very narrow alkaline range of about 7.3, 7.4. Any varying of that, and we put our bodies into significant strife. We do that for a long period of time, and guess what? All of these diseases pop out of the blue. Rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all of this stuff is related to an acid environment. Okay, so when calcium, now here's the thing, calcium is a blood buffer. Everybody know what a buffer is. When it's trying to compensate for a shift in pH balance, calcium acts as a way to get an acid environment into a base environment. Guess where the biggest storehouses of calcium are? Bones, storehouse. So your body in its innate intelligence and wisdom activates the nervous system that has all these receptors all over the place, and it sends stuff to go and break down bone, extract calcium, and dump it into the blood, because if you stay in an acid environment for very long, you're going to die. So what happens to bone density when that happens?
It's weak.
Exactly. You take the concrete away from the rebar. It becomes a little bit more. Yep. That's a biggie. So a lot of the systems that we implement in here are designed to get an acid environment to a basic environment. And there are lots of implications of that too. So here are the best sources of calcium. There was a book written by John Robbins called Food Revolution. Does everyone know who John Robbins is? He was, everyone's heard of Baskin and Robbins? He was Robbins' first son. And he said, I'm not being a part of this because what you're selling people is hurting the world. So he broke away, detached himself from the billions of dollars that he was going to inherit, and wrote books that went against the dairy industry and so forth. So he wrote a fantastic book called The Food Revolution. And in it, he measured the calcium absorption rates from all of these different things. Milk and collard greens and green, broccoli and Brussels sprouts and things like that. Guess which had the lowest of all of them? Milk. Guess which had the highest?
Dark green leafy.
Yes, specifically broccoli. Is broccoli being subsidized by the government? Is the broccoli farmer saying, okay, I'm in trouble here, can you give me $52 million? Who is being subsidized by the government? It's gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. So anyway, we start with grassroots movements like we're doing tonight, and then we expand this knowledge and try and change the world. Yeah. So here's where you get this stuff. Green leafies, sesame seeds, seaweed, fantastic. The healthiest cultures 10, 12,000 years ago used to live by the ocean. They used to eat tons of seaweed and tons of fish. Because guess what fish has? Oils, vitamin D, stuff that our body needs.
Now, is this seaweed over here a specific kind of, because I've had some seaweed that I can't even stomach.
Right.
And that is nice.
It's delicious, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's
That's-
very good.
It's kombu.
Kombu, okay.
Nuts and seeds are dense with all of this fun stuff too.
How about Brazil nuts?
Yeah, same part of it, but again, are you guys okay for time? I wanted to keep it. Everyone okay? Okay. I'm kind of branching all over the place, but it's Brazil nuts. Where are they from? Right. What cultures live around there? People are used to the sun, so nature produces what you need environmentally for that population. Where are we? We're Caucasian. We live up in the north. The nuts and seeds that we need to eat in our particular area of the world need to be local, things that we would typically eat here. Almonds are as North American as you're probably going to get. But seeds like sunflower seeds, that's definitely northern climate. What else can we stick in there? Hazelnuts, yeah,
Walnuts.
walnuts, yep. Things like
Apricot.
that. Probably a little better for our eating local
Right.
concept. More in line with how our bodies in northern
Because
climates.
they all three almonds, Brazil nuts, and walnuts.
Walnuts. Walnuts are dense in omega-3s too. So again, we need, in northern climates, we need omega-3 fat.
Now, does
I'll go
a,
into that one.
does a kale chip qualify as cooked kale? Because I've made my own and it's quite tasty,
Good.
but I don't like it cooked so much.
Yeah, I'd love to say that it's as good as raw kale, but you can lightly saute kale
Oh,
to
okay.
make it more,
Just
You
eat
know,
some
what if
broccoli
you-
with it while you're at it.
yeah,
Oh, what- yeah.
broccoli
Dry it
chaser.
in the-
So is it not as good if you don't cook it nutritionally?
Yeah, what, you know, when you take an egg and you put it in a frying pan, what happens to the white part of it? The gelatinous part turns white.
Denatures.
So, yeah, exactly, denaturation is what happens under heat. You take a protein under heat, you change its molecular structure. That's another thing that happens to milk, is what do they do to milk?
That's right.
What is pasteurization?
Eating it.
Denaturing it,
Not only denaturing
Heating it.
and heating, superheating it
yeah.
to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So not only is it something from another species, it's taking the proteins that would be good and the enzymes that are alive and just cooking them. So they just become proteins that are so foreign to our bodies. And when that happens, guess what's activated? The nervous system goes, ooh, that's not good. Activates the immune system keeps attacking it. We get that globally all over our bodies, and that's where all of these degenerative diseases come from, is that chronic inflamed state. Yeah, great question, because that opens up a Pandora's box of possible topics, yeah. Not a big fan of shrimp, why?
Farm rice.
Yeah, and filter
Poor fish.
feeders, they're the vacuum
Oh.
cleaners of the sea. Good. Questions on that? Okay. Vitamin D, huge buzz in the community, healthcare wellness community at the moment. How much is okay? It really depends on where you live. The best sources are the sun, and how, and specifically,
We should be moving.
moving or injecting vitamin D right into our eyeballs on a daily basis. So we need to get vitamin D and supplemented as much in a healthy range as possible. Getting your vitamin D checked out is incredibly important. We can order those tests for you and send you to somebody who does it. That's great.
What's the right level of the percentage for vitamin D?
Per day?
No, when you go and get your vitamin D checked.